If you gentlemen that are standing would like to sit down, then we'll stand up and do the. Let's go ahead. Do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everybody signed in? Yeah, I'm trying to share my screen, so. Display. Okay, good morning, everybody. Is there any public comment? I don't see any up there. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, program of projects update. We are doing quarterly meetings. Did everybody grab the latest and greatest quarterly meeting update? There is some couple changes from the one that I sent out an email. So make sure at the top right it says revised. And if anybody can't make it, we will find another date. There were a couple that couldn't make the 3, so we went ahead and scheduled a quick meeting for them before everybody else. So,
is this the same that was shown on the email invite?
No.
Okay.
This is revised.
Okay. Can you just then revise the email invite to show the correct times?
The email invite is only actually the date. The only one that's going to be changed is on the last date, and that one, I think Dyer moves up, so I'm going to have to get a hold of Dyer. I think those are the only ones. I think everything else is pretty much the same, because I've moved people. Let me see this. Absolutely. I've moved people to. This isn't even the right one.
That's the one you did.
This one? That was in your sheet. Okay, I'm sorry.
This is the one that was on the table.
Yeah, LaPorte County has moved to the 10th. I will send out a revised schedule to everybody. It really affects LaPorte County and Dyer, and I think that's it. Those were the only 2 that it affects. So, but I will send out a quarterly tracking schedule to everybody. And if anybody needs a meeting invite, let me know, or like Candace know, we'll send you a meeting invite. Those. Again, they're all virtual. If you want to come in on the 11th, I'll be in the office on the 11th. But outside of that, I understand you're coming 35 minutes, you're driving 30 minutes to sit for a 10-minute meeting, 15-minute meeting, I get that. So by all means, you are welcome to come or to attend virtually. We did have one project that went through letting, or that was awarded earlier this week. And that was East Chicago's Trail. So I do have one more project. I have a couple projects, one in April and one in May now, that I found out about this morning. So we'll see how that goes. And I think Michigan City is, I'm looking at Michigan City. They are, for the most part, all spent out. So, Michigan City, urbanized area. Any questions on the spending, the program of projects? I know Gary, there was a project that was in Gary that was brought to my attention yesterday, so I corrected that. Any other questions?
Is that available on the website, the current version?
Yes, on the agenda that you received, there's active links on the agenda,
Right,
as
is
well as on the
this
meeting,
spreadsheet there?
as well as on the
Okay.
meeting page.
Okay,
Yes,
okay,
it's in
all right.
two places.
All right, thank you. I hadn't gotten to the website before asking that question, so I
Oh,
apologize.
no problem.
Moving on to, then, there's no other discussion on that, then we'll move on to the new business. There's a consideration to revise the cost change thresholds for NERC tip amendments and administrative modifications. On today's meeting packet, you will see there's two different pages in there. One page has got what the current amendments are and administrative modifications. And on the second page, it should say at the bottom, say page 15, and that comes from our public participation plan, page 15 on that page. And then the next is going to be a revision to the tip. So we want to, so what we want to do is we want to move the tip amendments and their definitions and their thresholds from the public participation plan, which is Engage NWI, to the tip, Invest NWI. And the reason we want to do that is because earlier well, I should say mid last year, November, NERC had a meeting with federal U.S. Department of Transportation, and in their report, which was given to NERC on November 25th, they had a few recommendations. One recommendation concerning this, and one recommendation was for NERC to adopt NDOT's thresholds, and that is for clarity. Thresholds for amendments and modifications, and then also to move those thresholds from the public participation plan to the transportation improvement program. And then what that does is allows us a little more freedom to change those thresholds, because we adopt a new tip every 2 years. And we can also keep up with the times. We also, in addition, we want to, like I said, we want to update our region's thresholds to reflect current pricing and estimates. The biggest thing we have right here is anything over $100,000 is an amendment. And while that might have worked out well in 2018, it doesn't work in today's thresholds in today's environment. So if you have a change in your estimate for anything greater than $100,000, and it's the same with NDOT too, then it makes an amendment. We want to mold that to something that is something that we can work with and live with. And we also want to correct some ambiguity in the language of what is a tip and what is an administrative what is an amendment and what is an administrative modification. So currently, and I know there's a lot of writing on this screen here, but it's also on the second page of everybody's packet. So any phase of a project is added or construction phase is deleted. Addition of funds over $100,000, like I mentioned, and then it goes into modification. And then, of course, we have also have technical amendments and emergency amendments. Again, I could read them, but everybody here, I believe, can read. So, the proposal that we're going for is to change the wording, what's the definition of a form, and changing it from just an amendment to a formal amendment. And what you see in blue is what we're proposing to change. The stuff in black, the wording in black, still would remain the same. So we want to change a significant increase, or change it from $100,000 to a significant increase, as defined in the cost threshold tables.
Okay, I was just going to ask, what is significant?
Yes, and we will show. So it'll be in a couple slides.
Okay.
And that's actually we need to decide on that today. And then we did the changing or adding the term change in years of a regionally significant project within the current TIL that results in a project's anticipated open to traffic. That just gets into the air quality. And then of course, emergency amendment stays the same. And then an administrative modification, again, changes it. The only change is a non-significant funding change as the cost change tables. You can see the cost change tables on the the fourth page. And what we've started is we're hoping to do is adopt the NDOT for NDOT projects. We do not control the funds for NDOT projects, so if they want to change their projects, we have no say over that. And that comes into the being fiscally constrained on the projects. Again, like I said, we don't manage their funds, so we really don't have a whole lot of say over if they're fiscally constrained or not. And this is straight from the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. NDOT sponsored projects, if there's a change of less than $2 million, they're saying that amendment is more than 75% of the cost. And an administrative modification is less than 75% of the cost. And again, $2 million to $14,999,999 gets you to 50% is the threshold. And then from 15 million to 75 million, it's 40%. And then 75 million would be 30 or greater, would be 30%. NERC does not have any projects in our TIP that are 75 million or even 20 million.
We're like a fair $30 million budget, right? For capital improvements.
That includes both. That includes both. not even 30 million. We have about 25 million.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. So, again, this is taken from page 41 of the STIP document.
could you just sort of make an example, like, are you saying that a project had, if it was in excess of, in the first group, if it was in excess of $1.5 million, it would be an amendment, and if it was under 1.5 million, it would be an administrative.
These are NDOT's projects.
No, I know, but I'm trying to understand for clarity what
Yes.
this means.
Yes.
Right, so if the project itself is 2 million and the amendment is 1.5 million, then it requires an amendment.
Right.
And if
It's 1.4 million.
it's, well, if it's still less than, if it's still less than 2 million, so it's it's a less than $2 million project, and the amendment is less than 1.5 million.
Let's just say 2 million, 1.49999.
Okay,
Okay, so, or 1.9.
so the change is either greater than 1.5 million or less than 1.5 million.
Right.
I got you.
And again, look, if you had a $10 million project, then in this, they're saying that a $4.9 million change in that project is an administrative modification. And that's just an email from NERC to NDOT, or from an MPO to NDOT. Okay, there's no public comment on that. This is what NDOT has adopted, and again, our federal partners have recommended that we adopt what NDOT has. It's their funds. And there's some confusion because when we send it in, currently when we send it a project in, as what we define as administrative modification or amendment, it's not what NDOT defines. So there's some kind of confusion because we'll send stuff in and NDOT will say, well, that's an amendment or that's an administrative modification. So in their case, an administrative modification, in every case, administrative modification can go through the process a lot quicker. Whereas an amendment, it has to go out for public comment in Northwest Indiana, and then it goes to our commission. If our commission approves it, we send it to NDOT. NDOT sends it to Federal Highway. Federal Highway reviews it for air quality conformity, and after 7 days, they send it back to NDOT, and then NDOT puts it out for a 3-day public comment period. So it does take about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, for a project to go from, for an amendment, to go from approval at NERC to into the STIP. That's in addition to 45 days that I have to close the amendment and put it out for public comment before our meetings. So we're talking shrinking the time frame down.
So Charles, basically what you're trying to explain to everybody is that by adopting this under the recommendation of the group that came in November, we're hopefully going to avoid any problems going forward because we're adopting something that's already in place and we're following the protocol that they're following, so there's no confusion on what's an amendment and what's a modification, correct?
Correct. I also want to point out that that several other MPOs have adopted these thresholds. So it helps with the case of ambiguity because NERC is different than what MACOG and Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, Evansville, those are the bigger ones, have all said what is amendment versus administrative modification. Questions?
And it's by project, right?
Yes.
It's not by the group of programming projects, it's by project.
Correct.
So it actually would speed up the process if we adopted these
Yes.
is more than likely it would trigger an admin mod, and we could do that.
Correct. So then the question that we have is what we here at NERC are going to suggest for these local change projects. Do we want to adopt something similar to this? Or come up with our own for local projects? I did have a slide in here of what other,
It's slide 10. Slide 10.
I don't see it.
I have it on mine.
No.
Go back out to your teams. Go back out to teams and reload. Let's see. Or I can put mine in. Let's see.
I don't.
Oh, no.
No, I have a,
Yeah, but he has, I have an 11 on mine, so. Charles, you gonna bring mine over and see if we can load it?
yeah, that might be quicker. Bingo.
It's a good thing she walked over.
Yep, that's what happens. Got my steps in.
So, looking at the other MPOs, the larger MPOs, Indianapolis MPO, Evansville MPO, and Maycog, north, that's in South Bend, Mishawaka. They've all adopted thresholds similar to NDOT's, exactly the same, actually. The thing is, and again, we don't have $75 million projects. We don't have $50 million projects. Fort Wayne has adopted something similar, as we can see. They've adopted the same thresholds for NDOT projects, but they've reduced the thresholds for local projects, taking it to $25 million. We can do something similar to that, or we can come up with our own for local projects. Or we can adopt what NDOT has adopted.
I would suggest that it's simpler just to go within what NDOT has adopted.
I mean, does it really change a whole lot? I feel like most of our projects are in that 2 million to 15 million range.
Right.
So I agree with George.
Just adopt what NDOT has.
We're trying to be consistent with that.
Okay.
So.
So we could adopt this and just knowing that we never have projects in the 15 million.
Never say never.
That would use up, yeah. That, either way, it's, any other, Tom?
I would just point out that under this NDOT matrix, there is the potential for a project, say, I don't know, say there was a project that was $8 million in our program that would allow staff, nurture staff administratively, without any committee or commission review or approval, add up to $4 million to So just, but right now, anytime a project cost increases over $100,000, that's reviewed by the Transportation Committee and approved by the Commission. Under this rubric, staff could be potentially adding millions of dollars to project costs, completely administratively, without any public comment, yes, but also committee. I guess I'm more concerned about committee and the commission exercising the oversight role to a certain degree over the addition of millions of dollars for a single project.
Can we somehow require a committee review before we have to endorse a modification? Maybe not every modification, but maybe a modification for certain minimum amount. That way, you're still keeping something on a modification timeline, but also still alerting, other members that, that could have an interest in that fund source.
Perhaps we should amend it so that's run by the committee for anything at a certain level. Or...
So we do amendments 4 times a year. I might do an emergency amendment in May, but that is to if we're flexing funds from highway to transit. Sometimes we'll do that earlier if we don't have time for the entire, we want to award project or funds to a project. Those are the only times we use an emergency amendment. And if we want to do that, then I would suggest we would maybe look at something, thresholds that are a little bit lower. Or do we want to adopt this with, say, a cap of $3 million or $2 million? That's something else we could throw out there. That any change in a project of more than $2 million for a local would be an amendment, or something similar to $2 million.
For transparency, should we bring the administrative modifications at least in front of a committee just to tell us where we're at financially, where the balances are at?
For informational?
I can do that. Which committee would I
Transportation.
bring it to? The Transportation Committee?
That's what I was just thinking. That's what was
Okay.
in my head.
So then I would have a report at every Transportation Committee of upcoming or past modifications. Because the Transportation Committee meets on the first Tuesday of the month, and administrative modifications are due, I close them on the 15th and send them in by the 20th.
I think it'd be the previous months before.
What we sent in last time. Okay.
Or list modifications in real time on the tip page?
They are, modifications are in.
I'm looking at that right now, maybe a notice either to TROC and or the Transportation Committee that a new modification is being processed, just so we know what's going on. 'Cause I mean, if you make changes here, we don't get an alert for it. So maybe just an alert that a project is being amended or modified, being modified. Please go to the tip page on the website for any information on it. That way we're not holding these special meetings, we're not waiting a whole month or 2 months sometimes for a Transportation Committee meeting, and if anyone cares, they can look it up. For some fund sources, that may be more significant a change.
So you want a reminder, you're asking?
Not a reminder, just an alert.
Well, that would be a reminder, because anybody can go to anybody, and I mean, not just everybody in this room who have interior access to our TIF, but we can go to anybody, can go to the public page and look up what's currently open for public comment. I don't want to say public comment, but for public viewing,
Mhm.
any changes to any project.
Right, but if we don't know, if we're not monitoring it actively, then maybe a reminder whenever a change takes place. That way we're not requiring a meeting, virtual or otherwise, but we're being told when a new project is being modified.
Because they're the 15th every month.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So you want me to, I mean,
I mean, it's the 15th every month. If you want to know, set yourself a reminder.
Yeah, okay, so if you're doing it, and yeah, that was the part I was speaking, if you're doing it on the 15th of every month in terms of modification, then we'll just look on the 16th or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, the 16th, it wouldn't be open anymore, so yeah, I would say,
Okay. I got you, that was the nugget that I was missing, so I'm good now.
okay.
But if you make a report of transportation committee, then there's a little bit more transparency.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree with that.
okay,
Charles?
yes.
DNR lets you subscribe for when there's an update on a page, like the Sand Hill Crane Counts, for example. So maybe you could do something like that too. And then if somebody like David subscribes, then they get an alert when that page is modified.
I was literally thinking about a state level alert that I get, and maybe it's DNR.
Just on a matter of timing, if the administrative modifications are completed in the middle of the month, the transportation committee meets on the first Tuesday of the month. So the administrative modifications, if there was a report developed for the transportation committee, would be out 1 week after the modification is submitted. So there would sort of be not quite a real-time indication, but administrative modification would be completed. A week later, the agenda for the transportation committee meeting would go out, at which point that report would be included and distributed to committee members, and then the meeting would be the following week. So it would be a fairly quick turnaround for the report. Everyone would be aware fairly soon after it was submitted that it was what was included in the report.
Yeah, I forgot about that time. So. Any other discussion? Chris?
Do you have, an idea of how many, amendments would move to administrative modifications if we adopted this table based on past experience?
We would probably move, I'd say
100%?
probably 25 to 30% of our amendments would move.
From being an amendment to the
Yes.
administrative process, modification process? That would be more than that.
NDOT adds a lot of projects. So, I can look that up
No, I
and
just,
How about for local projects, Charles? I think that's probably more.
local projects is probably would, if we've adopted this, I would say it'd probably jump up over 50% of our amendments would turn into administrative modifications.
But you have amendments that aren't financial either, right? Like when Governor's Parkway fell off the tip.
Right.
Is that considered a financial amendment to the
No,
tip?
no.
It's just adding a project back on that fell
Right,
off.
and that's, in that case, that was not in the adoption, so according to Federal Highway and NDOT's eyes, it is not in the adopted tip. So any change to that adopted tip, it's a PDF, is any change, any adding a project is adding a new project. Even though it was
Which
in a
would
previous.
require an amendment.
Correct.
Right. So we can still have amendments, they just
Right.
wouldn't necessarily be increase in funding. So increase in funding, amendments are gonna drop significantly to administrative modifications because of the threshold.
Right. Now, I do need to point out that I still need to show fiscal constraint. So, but, if we have the funds, the couch cushion, that would help, this would help out with couch cushions. So any amendment that, any emergency amendment that I normally would put in March could now be an administrative modification, because I'm using up any extra funds.
I guess what my concern would be is that a change to a project, in either case, that causes other project schedules to be pushed down the road. I think that needs to be reported to committees and to the commission.
Right,
So-
yeah, and I honestly, I can tell you I will tell everybody right now that I am not gonna pull money from one project to give to another unless I have approval from both of those LPAs.
I would go with this as long as that's put in writing, because Charles might not be the person that's doing your job all into the future.
I do plan on retiring someday, yes, that is correct.
No, what I'm saying is that the people that agree on this, it should be set forth in writing so that it's in perpetuity and it's.
So, and to you mentioned perpetuity, and as I mentioned a little bit ago, this process can now change every 2 years when we put out a new tip. We are, as it shows in here, we're throwing it as an appendix, but it is our intent that when we write the next tip, the 28 to 32 tip, that it is embedded more into the document. So it'll just be a separate chapter or a separate heading in the document. So we do have some ability to change that then. And we are not changing any of the public comments or anything like that. So it still has to, amendment still has to go out for a 21-day public comment. It still has to go out for, down at INDOT, still has to go out for a 3-day public comment. It's still reviewed by, amendments are still reviewed by Federal Highway, FTA. So yeah, we do have some, this is not perpetuity.
Right.
And actually, it does help, and this is one of the comments that our federal partners had told us. This helps us, helps NERC, it helps INDOT, and it helps Federal Highway, because they're not seeing two different, what's an amendment, what's an admin mod, how come we're not seeing this, how come we are seeing this? So, and it, like I said, it allows us to change that if it's too strict, or if we feel it's not strict enough, we can come back and revisit it and right, which would be actually next spring. We'll come back and revisit it, because next spring we'll be looking at the 28th, the new tip. So, and I plan on still being here next year.
I didn't read anything by that other than.
But you never know, I could win the lottery.
Well, I just think back to the days of Gary Evers where, everybody's trying to remember all the rules that were never written down, but it turned out Gary had it written down somewhere, but, you know, it led to a little bit of confusion in years past.
Right.
10 years ago.
Right, and I'm trying to be honest and transparent with everything, but I also know that, the next person may not be. I'm assuming that they are going to be, but, there still needs to be some guardrails in place. And how much power do you want to give NERC staff? Again, do we want them on an $8 million project? If we had the money, we want to up it to 12 million.
I trust you.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, I think it provides staff more flexibility. I think all of our mayors would appreciate more flexibility in this climate.
But what Tom's saying though is the public doesn't get input, right? Is that what I heard? I mean, I'm not.
Well, public, and again, there's a lot of trust in this room, but not everyone is as trusting as others, and so there may be a situation where somebody would want to have additional oversight on the movement of a lot of money. But however we define it, how do we define a lot of money, I guess?
Wouldn't it just be simpler if we just changed our existing limit from $100,000 to $500,000 or whatever that is? And to me, we have rules, we would just shift to that. Why do we have to have a sliding scale?
Then it gets into if you have, that's great, but if you have $1 million project and we change it to say $500,000 or 750,000.
Sort of the same rules apply, I think, right?
Well, I don't think
Still, it's
that,
just $500,000.
I don't think that accomplishes getting it in line with state procedures either.
So I'm looking
Not
at.
everybody's following state procedure, right? I mean, he's saying Fort Wayne changed their procedure, they changed the upper limits to their scale.
They just changed the
project cost upper limits, right?
Yeah.
So
they just reduced them down.
They're doing it their own way.
Again, for local projects.
For local projects.
And what is Fort Wayne's procedure?
Right there. They just capped theirs at 25 million instead of 75 million.
So they follow the same process up to 25 million.
Right. And granted, they aren't gonna see a project of 25 million. They are not gonna see a project of probably 15 million. But they just.
So if you have a $1.99 million project, you can get a $1.5 million admin modification, but if you do a $2 million project, you can only do $1 million modification.
Right.
So, is that fair?
Stephen.
And then just another example of how this could be impactful to people in this room. You know, that bridge in Port County, it's a $10 million project.
Where?
Port County. Right. It's a multi-million dollar project, right?
You're talking about in Michigan City?
Somewhere in the Port County.
Okay, so they have a $4.4 million bridge.
Okay. So if we were to make the threshold a dollar number, $500,000, even a small adjustment to that would still count as a minimum, because 10% is not a big percent adjustment, but it's going to be over that.
10% on 4 million is 400K. He'd do a admin mod.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
So you want to say?
Let's say it's a $6 million bridge that gives a 10% adjustment, $500,000.
Yeah. So it needs an admin mod.
So
Or, sorry, it needs an amendment, beg your pardon, I'm confused.
I'm just trying to put context back to Reg.
To me, it's how much do we trust the guy in Charles's position to make admin mods on our behalf, right? I mean, we all want this to happen more efficiently, right? And $100,000 ain't working, but to me, it seems like it just move the threshold up and not fall into this trap.
Other discussion?
But where are we?
So we are then to, if there's no more discussion, then can I get a,
I think he was asking, what did we decide on this particular item on the agenda?
What's on the table right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, what would be the motion?
We need a motion?
yes, we need a motion.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of things out there. We have what Dean has mentioned is just increase the limit. As well as adopt the other language that we put in there, just changing that to the limit for the cost change threshold, and adopting NDOT's limits. Or we could adopt a sliding scale like this, similar to what Fort Wayne has, or we could adopt NDOT's. There's kind of three different, I'm seeing three different solutions here.
NDOT wants us to adopt this, correct?
There's, yes.
To clarify, NDOT would like Mercy to adopt their thresholds for their projects. They don't have an opinion on the thresholds that we adopt for our own local projects.
Thanks for that clarification, I didn't understand that.
I mean, I know this is really gonna happen.
But we still need
It's probably never gonna happen, but.
Or, I mean,
Honestly, like, I'm okay just adopting this table with, Charles providing reports at every transportation committee meeting, and we just see how the next 12
Can you
months
speak up a little, please?
Yeah, I would feel comfortable adopting the table with these thresholds, as well as then monthly getting reports from Charles as far as the administrative modifications submitted, seeing how the next 12 months plays out, and then revisit potentially again next year.
For all projects or just?
Yeah,
Local
that your
projects.
motion?
So moved.
Second.
For all projects.
for all local sponsored projects.
Yes.
Second. Discussion.
Discussion?
I just think it's too complicated, right? You just complicated our world, right? I mean, in your world, right?
I was supposed to simplify.
Do we trust him to do a modification? I mean, I'd rather have an admin modification than anyone, but I think if it's over a certain limit, you probably want the public some public input. And what's happening today is important, so.
I did have a question. Can these be compounded over time? If your total projects increase, is it then the new threshold you have to adhere to?
Yes, it can be, but it does take a couple months. It does take a good month for an administrative modification to be put into the STIP before. So it's not like I could add this month and then next month. I could do it this month and maybe 2 months later I could do it again. But if that was the case, then I would just do, and then we're talking another 2 months before that would show up. So we're talking a 4-month period. But what I found is that it's almost easier to do an amendment than to do 2 administrative modifications.
Really? It's easier
The
to
time frame. Yeah.
The time frame for one amendment is faster than 2 admin mods.
Yeah.
Two separate.
I'm talking about on emergencies.
My two consecutive.
And that would be true. That makes sense, right? Because they're happening at different times.
Right.
Plus with thresholds, when I've been modification becomes more difficult because the threshold goes higher once you add money to a project. So if you have a project and you do a mod that pushes it over $2 million, you're in another threshold. So it would be difficult to avoid an amendment by doing successive modifications because you're basically making your project more expensive and changing the threshold as you go along.
To
You
a
can't
point,
repeat this.
right? But there's a break even there at some point, and then it's gonna be. I lost my train of thought. It'll work to a point, but I think after that point, it's still painful. I just think, why do we have to make this so complicated? Right? I mean, this is, just because NDOT's doing it doesn't mean we should do it. And with all due respect to my friend from Valpo, I don't want Charles to send me an email every time he
I
makes
seconded it
it.
with the idea to get discussion.
Yes, of
figure out
course.
if we can have another proposal, or initially I suggested that we just go along with what they do and then have a limit on, when we can find out about it. Like we had discussed earlier in the conversation.
So according to Max's proposal is, we have to revisit this in another year.
Okay, and then we can make corrections and figure out where we're going with it and how it works. I don't know. Dean?
So everybody's gonna get a notification from Charles every time he does an admin mod, right? Everybody that wants a notification from.
Do I need to send a notification to everybody in the
I
room?
don't think so.
No, I think.
I don't think so, no. If you wanna know, you go into the tab, right?
Right.
You go to our tab, you can see what changes he's.
Right.
Why do we have to create work for that?
Yeah, when, if you're doing it on the 15th of every month, that's the schedule at which you would go in and take a look. And that's
Modify the
satisfied
motion,
my
make it simpler.
notification, except for, having a report at the transportation committee meeting, that's something that.
You do that anyway,
Right.
right? I mean, it comes in front of the full commission and he goes, hey, here's the, amendments
Right.
that are coming in for, don't you give a
Yes, I do.
report on what your admin mods are
Is that
too?
But there's also a desire for me to give an administrative modification report at the transportation committee, which is not a problem.
But do you give an administrative modification report somewhere in your
No.
normal, so nobody sees admin mods?
No.
That might be. Especially in light of what's happening here, right?
And I can start doing that in next month. So I'll do that next month in the February Transportation Committee.
So he's gonna do a report, we all have access to the report he does at the transportation committee, you don't have to go make extra notifications.
Right.
Right, that's cool.
So if there's no transportation committee meeting on a particular month, and we know to go on the 15th, then we'll get our information anyway.
Correct. If there's no Transportation Committee meeting, then I guess at the following meeting, then I will give a report for the last 2 months.
Right.
So.
So where are we?
So we have a
We have amendments,
we have a motion and a second.
yes, amendments is in there.
So
Need to be amended?
You have to read it, Brian. How should it be?
I'm confused.
I believe the motion was adopting the table that NDOT uses, as well as then Charles providing reports at each transportation committee meeting of.
Okay, so you're talking about this table, or you're talking about the one that NDOT has?
The NDOT table.
And,
The only difference is 25 versus 75 million, right?
Yeah. And I don't, personally, I don't think that's gonna come into play for us here whatsoever.
So
I'd rather just be consistent with NDOT.
It's insignificant, because none of us are ever gonna get that kind of money anyway.
And then.
We won't be.
Okay, so
3%.
Any further discussion?
The motion that's on the table is that we adopt this table for all projects, local and state projects. I give a report to the Transportation Committee every month or every time there's a meeting on the previous month's administrative modifications. And we will revisit this in 12 months when we write the next tip. Tom?
Can I just make a point of order on the motion? I think we're mixing things here, because there's a motion, the motion regarding the, changing the in-dot threshold, changing the local threshold, and incorporating the, tip revision guidelines into the tip document itself. Those all relate to the tip document. Now, the idea that we would also have a motion coming from the TROC, which I think is a good idea, that we would provide these reports on the administrative modification. That's a separate thing, because one of these is gonna take the form of a resolution that would be presented to the Transportation Committee and adopted by the Commission. The other is sort of a procedural thing that we think is a good idea to provide feedback to the community. I just think you've got two separate issues happening here. And one has to go out for public comment, revisions and all those three things that I mentioned. The other thing is just sort of an internal condition, I guess, that we would essentially put on that motion, but I don't know if we incorporate that into the resolution and bind the NRG staff to, in perpetuity, provide administrative modification reports, you know, by resolution. Does that make sense?
Okay. Does that make sense? Do you, so according to what Tom is saying, that we have procedures and we have a document. So the document would be to change to adopt NDOT standards. And the procedures would be to provide a report to the Transportation Committee, as well as revisit this in another year.
In other words, we need to have two motions, two separate motions instead of one. Is that?
Yeah, I don't know if it makes a difference, and sorry if I don't fully understand procedural requirements, but I look at this more of like the outcome rather than the steps to the outcome.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, this is a recommendation that ultimately the Transportation Committee. We ask the Commission to adopt by resolution the revisions to the TIP document. And I guess I wouldn't suggest that we make the adoption of those revisions, make a motion that contingent upon administrative modification report being provided to the transportation.
That's a good solution. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's the motion. The first and second agrees.
That's the motion.
Okay, so we changing this to two different motions?
No, it's one motion.
I don't think you giving reports requires a motion.
Okay.
Right? You're
Okay.
out of the goodness of your heart, you're gonna start sending us admin modification report, bring it to the TROC, sorry. You're bringing it to
Right now.
Transportation.
either one, yeah. You're gonna just add that as part of your regular duties and you don't need to make a motion.
Okay.
Please give us the reports.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you're slacking, we'll call you off.
I don't doubt that. Okay, so the motion's been modified to adopt these proposals, these definitions, as well as these thresholds into the TIP document.
Yes. Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do you need to be recognized as? No. So
I
motion
don't have to
passes.
be recognized, I just disagree with the process. We're
Okay.
overly complicated.
Just put it in the minutes.
But you'll come back in a year and we'll see if it's working or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, great. Now everybody remember this time next year, we're gonna review this.
If I don't,
Honestly,
I'll hear about it.
I think each month we're gonna kind of find out, like, okay, this was a good trajectory, or within 3 to
Yeah.
4 months, be like, oh, this is a terrible idea,
Yeah.
and we're making it way more difficult for him, then we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Can I, sorry, get procedural again, but I know that this, you just adopted a motion. Can I actually ask that we have 2 separate motions? I don't know if this can be done retroactively, but I'd like to have the in-dot thresholds and the amendment to the text that adds these to the document as a separate motion. And then the local threshold revisions be separate. And the reason for that is I wouldn't want to see the non-controversial items or the nobody had any issue or no discussion really about the in-dot threshold or the TIP amendment related to adding these to the TIP. But if there is some comment or disagreement on the local thresholds, I'd like to have those other 2 adopted. And if the other one doesn't get adopted, so be it.
What would that threshold be?
It says significantly,
I'm willing to,
right?
willing to make a
A
motion.
significant increase or decrease, but having the threshold table included is kind of, it has no logic to it.
Yes,
I mean, we could retain, I guess if you're retaining the existing, yeah, maybe not. But I guess my concern is I don't wanna not get those other 2 adopted. And then if there is some discussion, would that be
acceptable to you? You both know.
I voted no on that.
Okay. What about what you say?
Well,
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So
That's overly complicated, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. You want to?
well, the question that Martin brought up was that the definitions refer to the cost change threshold table as well as significant, the term significant. So we don't know what significant means or what the cost change threshold table is for local projects. That's where we're running into, we could trip up.
Max, you want to, or Bob, or Dean, you want to make the motion, or?
I think Martin has a
I-
point, I think I agree with him.
Yeah,
So I don't think that should be done. Right, but
I didn't catch what you said. You don't need to do it. Oh, okay.
So just keep
Okay.
what we have.
Not good to keep what we have.
I think we have to.
Okay. Thank you. Any other new business? Some announcements. A couple people have asked me about the NOFA working group. We want to work internally and get some questions before we bring it to the NOPA working group. I know I did say I wanted to start it in January, but we're gonna push that back. We're gonna work it, we're gonna massage it, and then bring it to probably either TROC or working group. There was also, we were also looking at doing a call for projects, and help me out with this, Tom. A call for long range projects to put in the long range plan. Because the way we're doing it right now is kind of backwards. Projects that are in the long range plan should then have preference in the TIP. Right now, we're putting projects into the TIP, and then if they are significant as far as regionally significant, I should say, then they get put into the long-range plan, which is backwards. So we're probably going to do a call for projects on a long-range. So any larger projects. We'll obviously keep Willow Creek and Kennedy Avenue in there. And then we'll probably add come up with something else that would determine what a long range, what kind of project should be in our long range plan. More on that later. And then lastly, there is an RFP out for road safety audits. This is for the consultants in the room. It is a 1 year, it's a 1 year RFP. So we'll just for 2026, we'll put another one out next year, I know, but it'll be for 2 years. And it's the way the funding is, because the funding isn't, we don't have the funding for 2027. So we can't guarantee a consultant that you could get the funding for 2027 if we don't have the funding guaranteed to us. So this year is only for 2026. And then starting in 2027, we'll do 27 and 28. So I'm just gonna move 77,500 from every year to every 2 years. Or so every 2 years would be 155,000. So just to kind of give how that's gonna work. So. Any other announcements? Okay.
Do you want to announce the next TPC meeting?
What's that?
You want to announce the next TPC meeting?
The next transportation committee?
Yeah, transportation.
I believe it's February 3rd.
February 3rd?
Yes. And the next dates for TROC is going to be May 26th. We'll go back to our regular schedule. And then August 25th after that. And then November 17th. But that date is tentative. That is 2 weeks before, or 2 days before the commission meeting. And without being impaled by our administrative staff, we'll probably move that, but to be determined. So, but that was something we put it on the agenda and then it got pointed out. So, anyway, anything else? Okay, all those in favor of it, can I get a motion? Motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor of adjourning, please stand up.
I'll take a little longer to do that, but I'm pretty much.